The AP brand, welcome. We're going to chat all about it today. So you started it several years ago. What was the original aim of AP and how has that changed over, it's like 5 years now?
Well, firstly, thank you for being here. Long overdue in this format. Obviously, you followed some of our projects over the years and it's getting more exciting, much more bigger each year as we go along, and we're being creative, trying to change the sport as much as you guys are. But it really started in 2019 and we were on a training camp in Tenerife. 2019 was actually a very good year for me. World record in the 100. But we were we're sitting in the hotel room and we realised that at the top level, nothing trickles down. You know, you have the elite sport and it's almost like a little, microcosm, its own world that no one can access. I was like, wouldn't it be great, firstly, to set up a business to deliver clinics? And we didn't want to call them, a clinic, for example, because it's so much more than that. It's not about just learning the technicals or how to swim. It's more about how to race and how to race well. And everything, what we've developed, 5 years later is all about, how can we have that kind of Olympic mindset, Olympic champion mindset, world record holder mindset for a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old or anyone that experiences what we deliver. And when we did that, we did the first one, it sold out, I think it was like 9 minutes or 8 minutes.
9 minutes, yeah.
And ever since then, it's just been very, very popular. Obviously, it's a great day for the parents, great day for the coaches that we invite, and even better day for all the athletes that take part. And we always say, I've definitely got much better at it, since I've had my own son, of his journey of going through controlling his emotion. But we always say that, you get to experience these days, but it's not about being the best athlete. It's about how can you be the best possible version of yourself. Obviously, our tagline or slogan is better than yesterday. So you can take all these skills of being the best racer, but you can also be the best doctor, the best teacher, the best whatever you want to do. And, it's kind of just developed from there, hasn't it?
Yeah. I always say that we got a bit carried away because obviously those first clinics we did 5 all over the country. So we had 100 swimmers a day, 500 swimmers. And then now, and again, 5 years later, when we look back at where we started, I've just let's do some really good clinics and see if we can do the best clinics that anyone's ever done. And then, we had another idea as we drove home from those clinics. And then now, again, as we've developed this more than just these clinics we do to a brand that we feel can have so much impact in the world of swimming, I guess.
So how would you say your journey has been so far? How would you describe it? It's been easy, been challenging?
Oh, that's a good question. Here you go. How's it been from? Because it's very different, right? Because I think what's so unique about us is, and it's a conversation we've had a number of times, is most athletes, especially in Olympic sport, do their professional career, finish and go, what shall I do? And the relationship myself and Adam have got was, again, and I always say it's probably the most, the best compliment I've ever received is Adam trusting me to lead the team and grow the brand while he's so active in his career. Because it's so rare that you have an athlete that is, 2019, Adam was probably, him and Dressel, probably the most watched and followed swimmers in the world. To then go, I'm also launching this project and doing these different things. I think we hit it at such a unique time. So I guess my journey through the brand has been very, very different to Adam's journey through the brand. And that's obviously changing a lot now as Adam's taking a much more operational role within the business. But I guess, how's it been from yours?
I think it's just exciting because you never know where it's going to go. Because in 2019, we were like, okay, let's do race clinics. At a very amateur level. Now we look back and we actually laugh at some of the photos we have and like, how do we do that? But I think the best word is just exciting, but also the opportunity. And not the opportunity as us and the rest of the team, but an opportunity for the country and the world of guiding these swimmers to break more world records, to challenge themselves in different ways. The Ultimate Race Clinic, they'll go through a few stations, strength and conditioning, swimming, but also the mental aspect. How can they apply that into the swimming at the end with a race, and all the other things and exciting projects we do as well. So I think even though it's extremely hard work, I only know through Ed how hard it is to get everyone on board, and that ball's started to roll a lot harder now and a lot faster. But I think swimming in the world is very hard to move. Swimming in this country is even harder because there's a lot of people in place that don't want it to change. And we're trying to fight not only from the sport as I've seen it from my perspective, but fight for the 7-year-old that wants to earn money from the sport, wants to actually have a career. And fighting for the 14-year-old that has no opportunities. And like, why would you do that? You know, I'm just going to focus on my GCSEs and my A-levels. So filling that gap of almost retention. I don't know what the percentage is. I think it's ridiculous that we lose so many from 13 to 17 because, let's be honest, house parties are a lot more interesting. You know, girls, boys, they're a lot more interesting at that age. So all these things as a society, we're not doing enough to maintain and retain. So I've gone a bit away from your question there, but yeah, it's good. We're in a good position.
It's been crazy as well, like especially over the last 12 months. And I think the big turning point was the AP Race London International in 2023, because we went from doing small events, you know, an online platform, a coaching network, to one of the biggest events in the swimming world that's not a World Championships or Olympics or whatever, a privately run competition, I guess, as you say it, and a budget that we'd never worked with before. And it's, you know, it's scary and it's very different, but I guess it was, and every time you do something new, it gets, like, that's the new level. So I remember we did the international the first year and it was like, oh wow, this is different, this is a new level. And then it was like, oh, that's that barrier now. And then, you know,
I remember you saying there were like a list of things that you can improve on, and that was just after the first one.
Yeah. And like, even when we were at the 2024 London International this year, we have a group chat and there was probably 70 or 80 items throughout the weekend that people were putting in this chat, and it's purely a feedback chat of, I've just seen this, I've just think that next year we can improve on this area. And, you know, again, your level just changes all the time. Of now, with the project in Saudi, for example, and the size of that project, you go, well, we're doing this competition, doing that, it's, you know, it just gets more and more normal, I guess. So it's been very strange. And I was, you know, we were at a gathering last night of Mel Marshall's leaving party as she goes for a new job, and, you know, people you haven't seen in 6 months or a year even, and people that we used to swim with and stuff, just going, I just never expected it would be this. And we're like, yeah, nor did we. So yeah, it's been pretty crazy.
The whole point of this is we'll dive into little parts of that journey. But I guess question first for you, Ed, and then maybe Adam picks up on this, is with Adam's journey in the pool, how many lessons has the brand taken from actually competitive swimming? So for example, when Adam took a break from mental health, how much did you put that knowledge and that learning into how you run the business and protecting your own staff?
That's a very good question. And that's something that, as well, now as we've got bigger and bigger, that we are definitely facing that we haven't faced before. So in the UK, for example, we have 6 full-time members of the team. The whole business is much bigger, but, you know, we're running probably next year maybe 40 events. Some of those will be clinics where it'll be, you know, 6, 7 in a row, or, you know, 2 days over a weekend or whatever it might be. But, you know, for a very, very small team, that's a huge task to do when people have lives and other things to do. So it's something that, as the business has got bigger, gets harder, and is very important for us, because I think business in general, but definitely our business, our brand, is about people, because the people we have that work within the brand you couldn't ask for more. So it's not about, you know, someone in the team going, oh, actually, I can't do this anymore, it's probably too much for me, and going, oh, it's fine, we can find someone else that'll do your job. The people are very irreplaceable in certain positions. So the protection around those people is very important. And I think it's not so much that we have learned from, you know, Adam's, that side of it in the pool. I think the brand, the biggest thing for me, and I talk to every single person, whether it's a new member of the team joining, being inducted, or whatever it is, it's a brand that doesn't want to be about Adam. It's a brand that has values, and it has a meaning and a mission. Adam, you know, is a co-founder alongside myself, and has been the main marketer of it, I guess. But, you know, in 20 years, there'll be another athlete that is at the spearhead of the brand, representing us.
I was going to say, because the growth of AP, is that down to Adam's name and what he's achieved in the pool more so than?
And I think, it helps. And I think that as I was alluding to before, the big thing that I say to everyone is they look at Adam and they go, okay, his brand is doing this. When they go to it, if they don't feel like it was a triple Olympic champion and 14-time world record holder experience, then we're not doing well enough, because that's what someone is paying for, or someone is being invited to, or someone is wearing an item of clothing from. So I guess I haven't actively taken the thought process around the protection of our team, although I'm becoming more and more apparent of that, and being more conscious of that. But the whole brand is Adam's values and what he's done in the pool. Someone coming to a project and going, wow, like, that's what I expected. That is good.
Okay, and then from Adam, from your point of view, to make that almost brand successful off the back of your ethos and your drive, do you need someone like Ed in your corner?
Oh, absolutely. None of this would have been possible without Ed. No way. And he doesn't get enough credit outside of that. And it's starting to, get the ball rolling now that, Ed is that, and he's the managing director of it all. Obviously, I'm swimming and I'm training 50,000 meters a week, plus gym, plus of all the commercial stuff I do, being a father, all the responsibilities I have. I hate the word impossible, but it'd be very, very difficult without someone like Ed.
I think that's why swimmers struggle to make a brand for themselves, because they are always their own champion and don't have, of course, the big team that you.
But I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed in this position because one thing I think people know me for is loyalty. That when you go through bad seasons or bad times, you'll get offers from other training programs or other coaches. And I'm like, I couldn't think of anything worse. I'd rather lose with Mel, for example. Yeah. And that's the exact same with Ed. I'm like, I'd rather lose with him than have someone else. So I think other athletes may not be in that fortunate position where they trust that person or have that loyalty to that person. I've been very fortunate that me and Ed have trained together for a very long time. Obviously, you stopped in 2020 to follow AP a lot more strongly, but also have Baxter Swimming back then. So yeah, I think it's a very difficult position, but that's where we come in. We want to help these athletes with our ambassadors, and hopefully in the future we can help a lot more people come through. So if we identify a very good talent at 12 years old and came from a background where, very similar to me, I didn't have the resources. I couldn't even afford a pair of trunks. There's one bit when I was going to Repton and to training, I filled up my car. I didn't have enough money in my bank. So I couldn't even afford to get to training. Mel bought my first car. So how can we help those people that fall between those cracks of, national funding or British Aquatics GB funding roles? How can we help in that position? So we want to help these athletes from the start all the way to hopefully the finish.
Is that a case of opening the checkbook, or is it giving them lessons to help them?
Both.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Money is unfortunately everything in this world. We live in a capitalistic world, and you could say, yeah, let's do it. Let's all make a daisy chain and run through the fields together. But it's just not realistic. You do need money, but where that money is spent can be very effective. You can do a lot of money, a lot of things with 5-10 grand in this sport. And it may just be, okay, we've got a 13-year-old going for their British championship, their first one. We want to give them a pair of trunks, or we want to give them all the merch, AP race merch, or provide hotels. That's something we look forward to in the future. But as a business, you need to make money to make that happen. So the whole ecosystem has to complement each other.
We were actually having this conversation last week around how we can do more for that upper end of athletes as well. And we've been really fortunate that in the last month, I've sat down and we've sat down with 3 Olympic champions who've all said, how have you managed to build a brand and a business based on what you've done? And, it's exciting to be in a position, and, some of the athletes that we've got, and we might need to cut this bit out, but depending on when we go for the release date. But Matt Richards, for example, we've been speaking to him for nearly a year around how he could become an athlete and how we can make it work, and it never quite aligned and it never quite worked. And then randomly about 2 months ago, I said to him, I've said to Matt and Adam said to Matt that we really believe he is one athlete in the country who will be very different to everyone else, in the sense of he's very switched on, he's very, very humble for how good he is, very mature, he's way above his years. And I said, look, instead of simply becoming an athlete, would you become an investor in the brand? Okay. And then Matt's now an investor in our project in Saudi. So, and it's very important for us that we've said to Matt, look, we really believe that you're an athlete that we want to really support through your journey. And Matt came to one of Adam's clinics he did with Mel, I think 10 years ago. And
there's a good picture of that.
Yeah. Maybe we can pop it up.
Yeah.
And, and we've sat down with Matt, and I actually did an interview with him with Swimming World a couple of days last week. And when Matt talks about what he wants to do in swimming and how excited he is for the brand, you could shut your eyes and it would be Adam talking. So, and like when we see another athlete who's so passionate about making change in the sport and being part of it, we'll do anything we can to help that athlete, whether it's they become an investor in the brand, whether, we sit down and help them build their own brand, whether we bring them on as a sponsored athlete. We want all athletes working together as long as they have the right purpose in the sport, because a lot of people
singing from the same hymn sheet.
Exactly, because there's some people that don't have the same mission in the sport, and we want to work with people who have the right mission for the sport, I think.
Well, the AP team is getting bigger and bigger, as you were just saying. What projects have enabled you to finance this growth?
two things essentially. The race clinics are always our most profitable project. So, and typically we launch a project a year. So we would do the race clinics, and the next year we would spend the money from the race clinics on the next project. And myself and Adam didn't take a salary. Adam still doesn't take a salary from AP Race, doesn't take dividends, doesn't take money out. I didn't take a salary. We took very, very small dividends for the first few years. And then this year when I moved away and left my private business that I had, until I focused every single day, I was working Saturday, Sunday coaching, private coaching, which was what I then lived on, so we could keep reinvesting in the brand. So until I moved away, and then we raised investment for one of our projects. I now have a salary, but Adam still doesn't. So the main area was always the race clinics funded the next project. And then in 2023, I sat down with Adam and I just said, look, when whatever happens after Paris, whether you carry on swimming, whether you step away from swimming, you'll be spending more time in the brand, actively, operationally. Like I said, he has operational roles now, and you need to be stepping into the biggest business possible. We can keep growing a project a year, or we can raise investment, or we could try and take out some big loans. And then Adam said he wanted to personally loan into the company. So Adam personally loaned in 2023. We had another, one of our very close, not employed with us, but works with us very closely, he loaned in as well. So the two big things that's funded the big growth we've had is the race clinics and Adam and one other person.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to understand that aspect of me investing into something like this, because they'll see it and like, oh, you're making loads of money doing this and you're taking away from the sport. Obviously, Ed's being quite humble, but what am I at? £325,000 into the company to help people get better, to help create that pathway that has been missing. And I see that as, I don't see it, it's obviously a lot of money, but I'm also like, that money can go so far to help. And obviously, let's say 5-10 years when hopefully it's all self-sufficient and we're having all these projects that are really helping the sport, that we can actually help other people like we discussed earlier. But people see this and they're like, yeah, well, you're just taking away from all that. Like the traditional model of run a race clinic, just take all the money. Or run a clinic, take all the money. But I'm like, no, I want to really invest. And, when Ed sat down in 2023, I understood that because okay, we've got Paris next year. Again, I want to be in a position where I can go into it, but also I want to invest in, some of the best staff in the world for who we employ, but also some of the best projects in the world that we can deliver for the sport. So I think it's very important for people to understand that I'm heavily invested into this, just as Ed's energy and his time, and we really, really do care.
I think that's part of the point that people forget, that it's people see AP and they just think, oh, you're pocketing all of the money, when it's not really about that. You do your clinics, you do your OP International, you do other things as well. And obviously the clinic's making the most amount of money, but what's the thing that's probably the least successful right now?
In terms of finance?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
The project we have in Saudi is a huge costs a lot every month to run it, for example. So there's 41 members of staff. So the payroll alone is significant.
Huh.
Yeah. So, there's that's always a risk in a sense that, and Saudi is the only place we have investors in terms of that project. So the AP Race brand, myself and Adam are the only shareholders. Our subsidiary that owns the company in Saudi that has investors who are all British investors. Like I said, Matt Richards is one of them. Again, we might need to cut this out depending on when it comes out, but as an investor, the first time she ever invested in a business through a friend. I sat down with her for about 2 hours, talked her through the business, the brand, and she just said, I can't miss out on this. I have to be part of this. And, she's not invested at a preferential rate over anyone else. She's invested at the same rate. So this project in Saudi is the biggest risk we always have, but the biggest loss maker project we have at the minute is the international. This year, so 2023, we lost probably about £30,000 to £35,000. This year, we would have been break even, which was the goal. I said we can lose 1 year, we can break even the second year, and the third year we need to be in profit. And we had 4 partners pull out within the last 2 months, so we made a loss of £40,000. And again, people think that an event like that meet, it's like, you've got full stands, you've got great people racing, but
especially when it's in London, for example.
But you got good prize money as well.
Yeah,
and that's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah,
and we could have made the decision of saying, we want to cut the £20,000 of prize money for the athletes that bring them here. But
then they won't turn up.
Yeah, but we've got to stay committed.
Well,
yeah, and there's no conversation ever of, oh, what do we reduce? What do we change? We go, no, actually the goal is to run the best event there is in the world for swimming, within our means. So that's the biggest year-on-year loss maker that we've had. But again, this year looking very exciting in terms of where we'll get to with that.
So if I'm understanding this right, then the Saudi project and the UK projects are completely different entities. Yes, they share your energy and your time, but in terms of like the comments you're going to get, I'm sure you've already had them already. Sports washing, that isn't coming into the UK and like funding any projects over here. They're completely separate.
Well, I wish we were. It's really funny because and we've been quite fortunate, to be honest, without a lot of people kind of taking that stance on things. Sport washing is when essentially, or whatever phrase people want to use, is a party paying a huge amount of money just to get what they want. We have had no investment from Saudi Arabia at all.
Okay, I think that's what people don't understand when they see the announcement. They see some sport happening in Saudi. They just think, oh look, they've been
loads of money.
So that's not happened.
No,
No.
We're, as Adam said before, we're incredibly heavily invested into the country. So it's our money that is kind of going over. And look, it's one business and one brand, and with the fact that it's the biggest risk, it's also the biggest opportunity we have in terms of business and revenue. So that will fund some of the projects in the UK. So if we want to, in a couple of years' time, to say, actually, we're taking the AP race, London International's budget up another £100,000, inevitably some of that will probably come from that project, and it may come from a different project. So it's one business, but we've never taken a penny or a real. So
and it will be worldwide as well after this. It's obviously once we're fully kind of autonomous, I guess, in Saudi, that it becomes a little bit easier. We've got our feet off the ground. I think the biggest misconception is ignorance, especially in this country, that people don't understand. If you've never stepped foot in a country, how can you possibly understand what it's like? And I was taken back because I went out for the first time after the Olympics and I was like, this is incredible. Just everything that they're doing to push their people, but also push the sporting environments as much as they can. And I think that's very exciting. So we got some, we work in some very exciting places out there. Obviously got our own pools out there as well that, we have, lots of kids coming through. And that's what it's what it's about. It's about those kids and their experiences and the parents' experiences. And, I've never had one comment or one rude, everyone wants to help you. And I think, they're doing an incredible job as a country, to put their interests first. And, for us, we want to help that. We want to have, Olympians from Saudi Arabia, and we want to be part of that. We want to help them. I was recently at the Saudi Games giving out the medals, which was incredible because their prize money is absolutely ridiculous. But, we got some very good relationships, very, very good people, very they take us out to dinner, and they're just, very, very nice. And we're very kind of humbled, I guess, when we walk out. I'm like, wow, they're treating us so nicely. And it's so funny because they never expected me to be out there so much. I think a lot of people and a lot of athletes would see that and go, well, let's just set up as a franchise. Yeah. But that would go away from our ethos of better than yesterday and looking at all the intricate details. Because as soon as you franchise anything, you lose control of the deliverables. And we never want to lose control of what we're about. Wherever it is in the country, it could be Malaysia, it could be Saudi, it could be America. It doesn't matter. It all has to be the same quality, which is the best standard that anyone else can deliver. With the best people that we handpick. A few British people of our staff and teachers have gone out, and they're the best of the best. And I see them, I'm like, that is incredible. And it's a learn to swim lesson that people are just like, oh yeah, it's learn to swim, just don't look, whatever, because it's just learn to swim. But I'm like, that is literally the best of the best. Yeah. So yes, it's we're really enjoying it out there.
I think a lot of people just assume because it's Saudi Arabia that there's money out there. You see the golf, you see the boxing. There's so much money being pumped in, and I think people just assume that they're just going out there for financial incentive, but it's for the country, for the people who actually enjoy it.
It's the most the opportunity that was there will never ever happen again in swimming. They're investing more heavily in sport than anyone else in the world. They have more of a passion for the country as a whole. They have what's called Vision 2030, essentially to be the happier, healthier country and essentially be the best they can be. They're driving towards this 2030 vision, and it's not a thing that they say that we think these kind of policies are. They are driving towards that, and they have no swimming. Swimming is non-existent there, and obviously, big athletes are very Ronaldo's there, AJ's boxing there all the time, the F1's there, and Adam's out there with swimming. And then also, swimming is one of the 3 skills that Prophet Muhammad said in the Quran that you should learn. And again, there's no swimming. So when you bring all those things together, they will never, ever align again in the world. And it's really funny when I was talking to some of my family about it, and they had their preconceptions as well around the country. And I said, oh, but there's thousands of drowning in the country every year. Does that mean that the kids shouldn't drown because you don't like your perception of an idea of something you've heard? Because again, it's, we run our program from parent and baby sessions to, training for elite competitions. Kids are drowning. That's the important thing, that there needs to be more swimming because kids are drowning.
Have you had any pushback from maybe current employees or former employees in terms of working out there?
No, nothing. It's like everyone's been incredibly excited, whether it's people we've previously worked with, whether it's people that we've just touched base with, whether it's the UK team. And when we put out that we were launching a project, we needed Learn to Swim teachers and coaches. We had over 700 people apply for the roles, and every single person we spoke to just said, I'll talk around the project and reasons, and they were just so excited.
So that also comes with maybe the negative side over here, is that you guys are British forward brand, that is where your market audience is, but then your advertising job for swim teachers, taking away swim teachers from this country.
Yeah.
Is that something you're actively aware of, that you're limiting how many teachers are in this? But it's not a big number, but you're taking staff away when they are needed.
Of course. I think there's a few things to that. Number one, we also want to launch this in the UK, but the reception we get in Saudi with this opportunity is very different to the UK. So we have got a meeting before the end of the year about a facility that is very keen, and we think potentially this could launch with them in the UK, so that's really exciting. And the second thing for us is, Adam talked to before about athletes needing to be paid more. Swimming teachers and swimming coaches are severely underpaid, and people aren't doing it because they don't love teaching and coaching. We interviewed 80 people for 6 positions we were recruiting for in Saudi, and I'd say at least half of the people said this is the first job I've seen advertised. It's actually a career in swimming teaching and coaching.
So you took 6 over?
Yes, six from Britain came.
Sure. Okay, so it's not a massive number.
Yeah.
I guess the other side from it then is you're flying quite a lot over to Saudi, everywhere. You're in Dubai right now, and Adam's going back quite a lot right now. Are you aware actively as a brand in terms of environmental impact of all of the flights that you're committing to? And is there like a long-term plan of being net zero and being able to achieve that?
Well, so I'm in Saudi. I live in Saudi full time now, so we don't have any projects currently in the UAE. Yes, we travel a lot. We don't have right now a sustainability program for offsetting carbon as such. I'm sure it's something that we'll look at.
But we're a startup.
Yeah.
If you look at any startup in the world that's trying to be successful, it's very hard to get sustainable at the front of that. We'd love to, of course, but at the end of the day, geography is geography. We've got to travel, and I try and travel as least as I can anyway, because I like to be home with my son. I like to have a normal routine, but unfortunately, I'm hoping the positives kind of outweigh the negatives. But we would love to, over the next few years, start to look at that and, okay, is this absolutely necessary? But unfortunately, like every other business that is global in the world, you've got to have people on the ground. And however we would try and, figure that out, whether it's a financial carbon credit thing or another offset way of offsetting those carbon, I think they call them carbon tax credits, I don't know. But again, we don't even know much about it because we're a startup, and all our focus is about delivering the best possible experiences and the best possible way to be safe in the water. So unfortunately, at the moment, it's, and truthfully, honestly, it's just not on our radar, because you can have a lot of companies and a lot of people going, yeah, we're about this, and they have nothing to show for it. But we're very honest that we aren't doing that right now. Hopefully in the future.
And that's the kind of thing that someone like is helping with. So, and we had an honest conversation with her about 2 weeks ago, and I said, look, the business has gone from 6 people in the UK to 47 between the UK and Saudi Arabia. This is a different world for me, and one of the things that's helping us with a lot is how we change from a small startup business to a business that's going to have potentially more investors in the future, and things like sustainability plans are very important for bigger businesses. So again, that's where the value of having an investor like is very beneficial.
So what's the overall reaction been from the public, obviously through social media or through face-to-face contact?
I think, you get a few Instagram comments. Again, a lot of people that don't know, but also, very fair points. Again, I'm not a politician, so I'm not going to go into on any of the politics, but I can understand it. But at the same time, you've got to give us, the leeway. You've got to give us the opportunity to hopefully have a positive change, like anything. I think, some things may start off negative, but it's because they don't understand the whole picture of everything that we've just talked about. And again, there is a bit of an ignorance aspect to things as well, that they don't fully understand what is actually happening. They just think it's all this massive building, just shoving money into it. But it's actually really hard to get the money out there firstly, but also to start to build that. So yeah, Instagram comments are one thing. I've had them my whole career. People that say you're not swimming fast enough, or when I took a mental health break, I'm like, why are you doing that when you're on that much money? And I'm like, money's nothing. It doesn't discriminate. You'll have footballers on hundreds of millions, 50 millions, and some of them commit suicide. It doesn't discriminate. So relating it back to people's comments, I'm like, actually, it doesn't really matter what Janet from, North England thinks right now, because I've had that my whole career, and everything we do is all about, again, positive change, and I just ignore it really because it's not really relevant to what we're doing right now.
I think we've been, and it was something we were quite prepared for, and had discussions around, how we feel about it. And I think, again, people didn't really believe how committed we were to this project, and thought, we were going to go over, set up a franchise, try and get some fast money from it. And again, it's the furthest thing away from that, and it's a big commitment. We're, again, the investors heavily invested, Adam's heavily invested, and again, I think it's just people not quite understanding how committed we are to the vision of the overall sport. And people think that everything can happen overnight and can happen tomorrow, but we're not trying to change. Obviously, we're trying to change the sport every single day, but we're trying to make the change that in 5-10 years, it's not 14 million people swimming every week, but 60,000 compete in England, because that's ridiculous. Yeah. So it's like we need time to make this change, and I think we've really, over the last year or so, the ball is definitely rolling with people going, actually, I can see the difference that you guys are trying to make, and people are on board with that.
I think the biggest thing is it could be a little bit of a distraction away from your English audience, a British audience. So let's talk a little bit about one of your more successful but least successful financial projects. Yeah. So the AP International. Yeah. It's still successful for you, even though it's not making money. So how does it leap on to the next level?
Adam taking a more operational role for sure. So, partnerships is something, we talk a lot about, and is key for big sporting events.
How hard is that for a swimming event to get a brand that isn't involved in swimming? Like in golf, they've got BMW who sponsor a meet. How hard is that?
Very difficult. It is very difficult because, golf, especially professional golf, has been around a lot longer than swimming. I'd even argue that swimming hasn't even reached the professional stage. We had obviously a slight little taste of it with the ISL, but it hasn't reached that. For me, I don't really get much money from swimming at all. I haven't been on funding in 10 years because I earn apparently too much. And I'm mean tested out of it because it's a backward system. I'm like, it's the better you do, the less you get from your government, basically. Which I understand, firstly, but I also, it doesn't compute in my head.
It's essentially, if you earn over £65,000 personally,
£1 over, you start to get means tested. So £1 over, I think it's £2 off or something. But again, it's, those kind of things are just all the financial side of it, isn't it? It's just, it's one of those.
So what brands are you trying to get involved in the AP International to take it to the next level? Is it out of swimming? Is it in swimming? Are you pushing in swimming brands to see the vision and invest more, or are you looking elsewhere?
You've got to have both, I think, to really understand. Obviously, there's a swimming audience, so it's an easy kind of market. You've got some of the best swimmers in the world, all the young children that are going there. But also out of that, you've also got all these amazing companies that want to be part of sport, especially at the grassroots level, and whether that's through CSR, so corporate social responsibility, or whether it's through actually getting a return on investment. So we're looking at brands outside of what we've traditionally looked at as well, and I think that's for us the most exciting bit now. How can we take the AP International, one, to start to make it profitable through partnerships, but also give a very good experience for those people who are investing and those companies who are investing, and show that swimming is actually really, really exciting. And I almost want to swear then, because it's that I'm that passionate about it, like seeing the close racing and seeing how the fans interact with the swimmers. I literally watched a video this morning with, I think it was Texas. You sent me on the reel. I'm like, And then obviously Kyle in America, he's doing a great job at promoting swimming, and they're always selling out those, those kind of heads-to-heads. So there is a market. It's one of the most watched sports in the Olympics.
1 billion
And
viewers.
it gets, look at Paris, for example. It's absolutely ridiculous that we haven't started to shift it to more of a professional kind of standpoint. And I'd come back to the first question, or first thing I said this morning, was about the sport hasn't changed. If you look at the last 20, 30 years, the fundamentals haven't changed. We're still relying on the government money. We're still relying on UK sport, which is great. It's been a game changer since 2000. We've had so many more medals come through because of that. People can have that as a full-time job. But since then, I think people get too comfy. I think, how can we actually look at more private investors to get behind these athletes? Because every other sport's doing it. Olympic sports are doing it. British athletics, British cycling. So why has swimming not got that? Because we have got the people behind it. We've got the very, very good personalities behind it too.
You put a lot of focus in venue, making the seats and spectators pay £1, £2. Is that the main focus for you guys to make it sure it's a big spectacle, more so than like what we do streaming and make it on social media?
I think it's hard, right? Because obviously we're moving to a world of content, and Adam might have a different opinion on me with me on this, and definitely, some form of broadcasting is definitely something we're looking into. Whether that is a normal stream, I hate normal streams because they're so boring. It's just my personal opinion that it's just so difficult. Like the AP Race London International is so good in venue, the excitement's amazing, and when Adam's on poolside hosting it with John Mason, the energy from the crowd is so good. You can't relay that on live stream. So I'm just generally not a fan of pushing that out, and I think it doesn't give a good representation of what we're creating. But I know you're very keen on different broadcast types.
Yeah, I think the problem with the streams and the system that I've gone through for 19 years, nearly 20 years now. I've had 2 decades experience of this and watching it and seeing other people swim. And you turn on nationals, for example, you turn on a stream and it's the same camera angle. It doesn't move, same camera angle. And I can understand because of budget constraints, and that's more for people to tune in. But I'm like, unless you're actually there, you don't feel anything. You don't see anything. There's no emotion. Emotion is why we watch sport. End of. That's why F1 invests so much in so many cameras, helicopters, all these different views, all these photographers. Football, exactly the same, different angles. So why is swimming, who's made the decision that one camera is good enough? Again, so for me, especially on the broadcast front, you've got to have the new generation. And that is TikTok, that is Reels, that is, going all around Snapchat, having that interaction and having it from their point of view too. And that's something we're looking at for hopefully this year, or if not this year, then one after, of interacting with people on poolside in their own content creation as well. So content has to, it doesn't matter if you've got £100 million spectacle event or £20 million, sphere in Vegas, whatever it is. If what most people will view it on, which is going to be on stream or through content, if that's rubbish and they're delivering that, the whole thing's going to be rubbish. So yes, we do invest heavily on the kind of in arena because we want everyone there to come back and we want to show how good swimming is and how much emotion can be in that pool.
It's getting the personalities across as well, I'm sure, because you see a Hassan goal because you can't see their face and you just see them grow up and down, pressure up and down in the water.
And this is another thing. I'm like, let's try to push a little bit of personalities, because when someone gets out and they've just broken a British record, and this is no fault for them, they may be a bit shy. I was in that exact same boat, a long time ago, but just be you. Just say how exciting it is to do that, how exciting the arena is, a crowd. Because a lot of people, even at World Champs now, are going, yeah, well, it was good. Just broke a world record. It was good. I think I could have done this better. I'm like, but that doesn't, there's no emotion there. They should just, you know what, I absolutely smashed my goal. So happy for this. Rah, rah, rah. But, there's got to be a little, it's just a lot missing.
Does there need to be more competitions then? Maybe they are shy and they're not racing enough. And so you said about ISL earlier, maybe there needs to be more initiatives like that, like the World Series that have recently just happened.
I think World Aquatics are doing a very good job at the World Cups and getting, I did a bit with John Mason behind the scenes, and that video was very popular about going through the different journeys, and that was my kind of comeback for Paris. That's exactly what you need. You need to start to build these stories of these athletes, doesn't matter if you're in lane 1 or lane 8 or lane 4, that everyone understands who's racing.
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference that's happening right now in the world of swimming that probably people haven't picked up on, is John Mason is at every meet. And he is that comfortable personality that people get used to, so that they might start opening up in like 4 years. And you guys have got him involved as well, and constantly involved, that if it is a junior swimmer who wins out of nowhere one of your races, they've seen him on TV, they can actually speak to him. Like we find it with our podcast. When we first started a year ago, people were all clammy and not really
They wouldn't open up. Yeah.
We speak to them now 5 years later, and they are a completely different person because they trust us to
It's a very good point. It's a very important point.
trust in swimming. And having that one, I don't know if he likes to be the focal face right now of swimming, but having that is actually really powerful.
I think that's what we're trying to develop as a brand as well, of, you know, with a trusted brand that people can rely on. And, you know, we're talking about some really big ideas around, again, how we can work with athletes. It's going to build more attention to swimming, and, you know, work with more athletes to provide them with a bigger career in swimming and whatever that might be. And I think that we're starting to almost turn a tide now where, you know, this generation that's coming through of, you know, the ones that are just making teams and stuff, definitely in Britain, are starting to reach out to us, and generally more me, I think, probably because they see I've previously had a more active position with running things, of saying, this is, how can I be involved? This is great. Like, I want to be part of this. And that's really good for us, and like gratifying, because I think it's often very challenging with people, don't want to be part of something sometimes. And, you know, we've definitely had clashes in the past with people of, you know, they want to do their own thing and they think they're bigger and better than us, which is, you know, fair enough and stuff. And it's a shame when people don't see that there's a bigger vision with what we're doing. And I think that's...
We're literally trying to help them.
Yeah.
We're literally trying to help them
Yeah.
do that, because a lot of people, especially in this sport where you don't really get paid that much at all from swimming, you make most of your money from commercial partners. And I've been very fortunate enough to work with some incredible companies, be an ambassador for, that I'm still an ambassador for, and then had my whole journey basically with them. But a lot of people will win Olympic gold and go, show me the money.
Yeah.
But how can you show me the money when you haven't got a brand? You're not marketable, because no one knows who you are.
You are.
The personality.
Yeah.
And that's what we're saying. Like, you've got to start to build your angle of who you are. Whatever you want that to be, I'll just emphasize it's got to be you. Because I think AJ said it, you know, a lot of times if you're fake, you're going to get found out. And it's true, because you can't sustain that for 2 decades, you know.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's why you guys are so open to have conversations about the brand, especially like you're really active on social media about what's going on, because you want to build that trust. Now, when we're talking about trust, and like we've talked about the AP International, but you guys have run open meets lower than that level.
Yeah.
So why launch your own meets and take that on yourselves than working with maybe a trusted club that's had a meet for so long
years.
and sponsor that meet? What was the intention of going by yourself? Because I know there's been a bit of kickback when it's clashed with other event.
There's a couple of parts to it. So we want to be able to run events that cater for everyone. So whether it's an open meet for age groupers, the international for the best athletes in the world, or a masters competition for people that love training with their friends and want to have a bit of fun at the weekend and race. And I think it's very difficult to take an existing thing and make it better. It's often quite hard. And I think the really important thing for us is that the International is our flagship event. That's where 10,000 people come to watch and go, that was great, I want to be there again next year. Or they see videos and pictures of it and go, actually, I need to be there next year. And it's about making that experience applicable to anyone. So is it, you know, the Masters meet that we did, you know, we had a bit of a delay with it, you know, when the scoreboards start playing up and you need 5 minutes to fix it, and there's people behind the blocks, and, you know, one of them starts dancing, and you say, okay, whoever gets the best dance moves behind the blocks wins a £50 merchandise voucher. And then that's what Master swimmers want. But to take an existing Masters meet and try and put our spin on it is going to be very difficult. But
It's not cohesive. And everything we do is about team cohesion, but also event cohesion, that everyone knows their roles. And when you start to work with, say, third parties, that they don't understand how we operate, there's just too much at risk, I think. So yeah, we like to just be in control of the controllables, and, you know, give the best experience for hopefully people to be PB really and have a good time.
I think the misconception with the meets as well is, obviously open meets, for example, fund a huge amount of club finances. And say we run an open meet and someone says, oh, but what if that kills a different meet in the area that's doing whatever? And that, you know, that club then suffers. I think people forget sometimes if open meets start stopping because of our events and clubs go under, more swimmers leave the sport and there's less customers for our business.
Yeah, literally. Like, why would we want to do that? We want to literally help the whole sport, and we wouldn't ever try and, you know, kind of have anyone by the throat with draining all their resources.
And for example, like what worked really well with us is our first open meet, the program, the location we ran it. They essentially get 5 meets a year they're allowed to run. For example, that the community, the council say you can have the pool for a meet, and they said one of our 5, can you run one of these, because the experience will be so good for our swimmers. And like I said before, I think the cameras may be off. I think 20% of all attendees messaged after that meet and said this was going to be our last season of swimming, but this competition has kept me going. So when clubs see the value of what we're trying to do and the reason it'd be a positive, and again that's 30 swimmers again paying their clubs for another year that they wouldn't have carried on swimming for. And again, if we do things that are a detriment to swimming clubs in the country, they lose swimmers. And again, talking about very black and white, we lose customers because we're a swimming brand. So it goes against everything that we are trying to do if we do things that have a negative impact on clubs.
And if a club does come to you and say, can you run this open meet, is it a profit share? Are you guys not keeping
the way we work is the same we work with anyone. We need to understand what works best for both parties. If you approached us next week and said, look, we've got an open meet in February, we'd love it to be you're Gloucester. This is the AP Race Gloucester Open. We can't run at a loss because we're a business, and we need to make sure that we can pay Kev and Will, who's filming the podcast. So we need to make sure it works for us as a business. But if you guys say we usually make £5,000 from this meet a year, we have to make that. We go, okay, a non-negotiable for us is we can't lose money. Non-negotiable for you is you need to make £5,000. What else are we going to create within that is great for you guys and great for us? And it's the same way we have our contract in Saudi Arabia, for example. Every school, every venue we work in is completely different because each party needs different things in that specific area. So we never want to stop a great opportunity because we do things our way and you do your things your way, because that's the problem with swimming.
So it's very much 50-50. You're not overstepping your welcome.
We want to make sure that we can work with people as best we can.
So a big theme throughout this whole podcast is there's massive decisions that have taken place, whether it's AP International, Saudi. Who gets the sign off out of the two of you?
Both of us. I think if it's a very important decision, especially if I'm swimming and I'm racing somewhere, for example, he will just run it by me. But if it's not, then I fully trust that Ed's vision is my vision. We always have catch-ups where we text each other multiple times a day, every single day for the past, I don't know how long, 9 years. 9 years. So that's, when the big decisions really, I can trust him to understand what I would want as well. And there's sometimes where you fight your corner when I don't believe it can happen for whatever reason, and then he'll explain it, and then obviously I'll give my approval of my side. But those kind of decisions will not happen if just by you, because you wouldn't, you need my kind of approval. And it's the same if I've got an idea and he says not now, but maybe in 2 years. So yeah.
So there's been a few times where you've butted heads over something.
I think we haven't ever really disagreed on something.
Yeah.
We have ideas like for example, I've put an idea to Adam in the last, say, 2-3 months that he thinks is a good idea but isn't a priority, and I think it's the biggest priority, for example. And and then that's essentially we've made the decision of, I'll see if I can make it work without any risk at all. And then if we can, then that's great because we agree it's a good idea. But we've never had a big disagreement where we've gone and we've just gone out there.
And that's where you've got to segregate or kind of compartmentalize friendship and professional relationships, because you can communicate on a professional level. Like our emails are like, hello, Edward. Whereas he'll just not even say hello on the WhatsApp, for example. So it's you got your very official professional side, but then you also got the friendship. And I think both of them work very cohesively, and we always get the result more or less that we need.
And a friendship hasn't changed since 2019?
No, it's got stronger, I think. Yeah.
Like deeper.
And I think that's the thing is, before we started any of this is, when we train together, and I say it all the time, I've never seen two people work so well together than when we train together. And it was never about, if we were doing a gym circuit, if Adam looked over and thought I was working harder than him, that would be the thing that made Adam work harder. And if I looked over and thought Adam was working harder than me, I then wanted to push harder. There was never and if we were in the pool, it was never about, Ed's 2 seconds behind me per 50, better than him. He looks like he's actually in more pain there, maybe I could probably push harder. And I think that's what our relationship is built off.
So we know the drive between the two of you, and almost it sounded like a bit of competitive is pushing the business on, but what makes a successful AP employee for you?
Ooh,
That's a very good question.
that's a great question.
Because it's probably going to be different for me and you.
For me, it's just commitment, passion, and capability. I think they're the three things, because like I said before, business is people, but our business is even more about people, because you can't change something, unless you've got a team of 500 that, it doesn't matter if some people don't really care, but they're doing their job. When you're such a small team, you can't have people that are not committed, not passionate, and incapable of doing their jobs. So for me, if I had three things, it would be in that order as well: committed, passionate, and then you can always improve your skill set, because we have generally always hired and brought people in based on the person they are, and they have a really good skill set that could probably improve, rather than you've got a great skill set, but we're just not going to get on here.
But it might take a while for you to find out those three things about a person.
Yeah, of course. You always give them a chance, But I think for me, as well as those points, would be charisma and energy. That you've got to have a little bit of something about you that you enjoy being around people, because you can have some of the best operators over here that Ed's just mentioned, but not able to say hello to a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 40-year-old master. So being able to communicate those with charisma is very important for us. And we always say in our briefings before, we start the clinics tours, or whether we're doing a clinic or AP race, it doesn't matter what we're doing. It's all about kind of customer engagement and happiness, and give all your energy to absolutely everyone, and smiles, and the very easy things to do, I think. But that's very important for us, that you want people that look like they want to be there.
I think people who work with us they realize the impact they're having. When we do we've talked about clinics a lot, but when we do a clinic, say we have 100 kids, I guarantee 10 emails will say it's the best day of their life. Probably one or two of them will say a family member's died and I've not seen them smile since. This has been, they had an eating disorder 2 years ago, and today has given them the confidence that they can be the person they've always dreamed about being. And every single interaction that we have, and I'm quite brutal and quite harsh on this probably with the team, every single person has to understand that could be the person you're speaking to right now. So even if you're on your 8th day of the tour and you've done 14-hour days and you go, I can't really be asked to talk to this kid, which you may feel inside, it may be the worst. Yesterday have been the worst day of their life, and today's could be the best. And when people appreciate that and actually deliver that, and like I said, the team we have now is, you couldn't get better. And their commitment to that, understanding that impact, is the best.
Is there a sense of expectation that you put on staff, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But I think that's like any company who wants to be successful, you have to, because you're almost delegating that role on your level. So I say to Ed that, everything we do is a representation really of me, Adam Peaty Race. It's my name on the board. So every email, every interaction is always going to come back to me. It doesn't matter who it was, where could it be a contractor for one day, for example, it could be a long-term employee. Eventually they're going to think of that experience and think, oh yeah, but I didn't like that because they spoke to me, that's Adam Peaty's fault. So having the trust in them to develop that skill set, I really enjoy as well. And seeing the team grow, to what it is now, but also seeing them grow in themselves individually, and pushing the boundaries of who we employ and who we work with, that's something I really enjoy. We had a few assistant coaches this year that, started off quite shy, quite reserved, but then I go, oh, what do you think? Can you do this? And putting that kind of charisma role on them to help them grow as athletes, because they're still, racing and they're still full-time athletes. So hopefully that little interaction over that 8 days, if they don't make it as swimming or don't want to be swimming anymore, they can also take that skill set into whatever they want to do after swimming.
So you guys are 5 years old into the company now. Mm-hmm. What's the next 5 years looking like?
Oh God. Honestly, I don't know. And people ask us this quite a lot. And, even again, going back to this conversation we had with 2 weeks ago, and if you'd said to us 12 months ago that I would now be living in Saudi Arabia and then coming back to run the projects in the UK, and this is where the business was at, I'd have said probably not. And 2 years before, if you'd said that we were launching an academy, it would go to 47 people in overnight in the team, again, I'd say probably not. So I think, and again, Adam might have a different opinion on this, but there's an idea and there's a theme and there's a dream. but the actual things to get there right now isn't written down on this 5-year vision and plan. We know what we're going to get to.
Yeah, and you've got to be agile.
Yeah.
No one knew in 2019 when we first started that COVID would hit the year after. And that really kind of put a stop in our thinking because we couldn't do anything. We couldn't launch anything. We couldn't interact really, which is when AP Race Plus came around, more of an online model that anyone in the world can access that. Valuable information, nutrition, strength and conditioning, parent support. What do I do when my kid is doing this, for example? All these lessons that we can actually put on 365, doesn't matter what it is, as long as the servers don't go down. But for us, it's you never know what's going to happen. I don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. So why, obviously we'll have a 3-year plan, ideally, or, kind of in theory. But until we actually get there and, kind of be agile, if that's what the people want, that's what's important for the sport, then you start to ask yourself questions of, making those short-term plans as well.
Well, guys, thank you so much for inviting us here, for being so open, and hopefully we've answered a lot of questions that have been floated to us, and best of luck for the next few years.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
You've been listening to the Propulsion Swimming Podcast with Scott and Dan. We want to thank you for joining us and invite you to subscribe to the show, as well as checking out the Propulsion Swimming YouTube channel for weekly tutorials and videos to get your swimming fix. We will be back next week. Until then, we'll catch you on the next one.